I don't think that a payment processor should be able to clutch their pearls at your purchases. Their job is to process the payment, not to judge you based on what you're doing with your money, right? Genuinely, I don't think that as long as anyone is getting hurt and there is like consent and maintained and managed, I don't really give a shit what anyone does in their bedrooms, or like Zerks it too. I don't care what's in your porn folder, and I think it's weird to care. I think it's really weird to care. Why the fuck would I give a shit about that? Why would I pass a moral judgment on that? That's weird, dude. Like, MasterCard should not be able to tell you can't spend money on boobies. I had an opinion piece I made it the title of the stream. I guess Steam has recently kind of sneakily added some restrictions to their list of what you can post on Steam and what's like appropriate. It's spurred on by payment processors to essentially be a little more puritanical. And I can pull it up. I can pull up what I'm talking about. It seems like Steam rules have been updated to prohibit content that violates rules set forth by payment processors and banks, which I think personally is a bad idea. The rule for what you shouldn't publish on Steam has been updated to include content that may violate the rules and standards set forth by Steam's payment processors and related card networks and banks or internet network providers. In particular, certain kinds of adult-only content. I think it's been pretty well noticed that Steam has been, there have been a lot more adult games on Steam, and whether or not you really agree with, like, I guess, adult games in general, I think that they are something that people should have access to, and you should be able to buy with your money that you have, if you want to. I don't think that a payment processor should be able to clutch their pearls at your purchases and tell you can't do it, and that you cannot send money to support the person who you want to support with your money. I don't think a payment processor should have that, like, power. Their job is to process the payment, not to judge you based on what you're doing with your money, right? And it's puritanical, ultimately, right? This is going to be porn games. I think specifically here it noticed that a bunch of incest and slavery got removed. And listen, I'm not saying that interactive sex Futanari incest episode 4 is art and deserves to exist, right? Like, I'm not making a judgment on that. I don't care. But I don't think that MasterCard should be allowed to tell you what you can jerk it to, right? I think it's this thing that there's so much, like, puritanical thought revolving around adult-only games and adult-only content in general. Having, like, a fetish doesn't make you a bad person, even if that fetish is unethical. It's just a fetish. There are people that can engage safely in even unethical fetishes with other consenting adults, right? Like, it's possible, and it's not hurting anyone if everyone is consenting. According to SteamDB, a large number of games has been removed from the platform in the last 16 hours. Judging from the from the list, it appears to be sex simulator type games with keywords such as incest and slavery making up the majority. There's some confusing cases like the removal of the Ace Attorney-inspired investigation game Trials of Innocence, although this could be a coincidental deletion. On a related note, various video game and manga hosting platforms in Japan have in recent years run into trouble with payment processors and credit card networks due to certain content on the platforms going against the often undisclosed rules and standards of third parties handling payments. This has led to loss of revenue and even the closure of platforms like Manga Library Z. It's possible that Steam's new rule is a means to prevent such complications from arising. However, as the specific rules and standards of payment processors are also unclear, publishers might need to be extra cautious with releasing their games on the platform. This is, if not Steam getting sued or threatened, this is a complying in advance. Obviously, I do not necessarily think that Valve is a great company because they allow child gambling on their platform. And yes, I do believe that it is gambling to open chests in video games and then be able to sell them on the secondary market in exchange for real things like Steam Decks, right? Obviously, it's gambling. It's layers of abstraction from what we normally recognize as gambling, but it is gambling, and there are no restrictions on it, and it should be moderated and very strictly controlled. But for that to exist, a lot like Magic and other card games, they would have to acknowledge the secondary market or have some kind of restrictions placed on that. And it's just so profitable for them that they're not going to. This is another reason that while the world is ruled by capital, we're never going to see like decisions made for the betterment of humanity, right? Except for like the odd, charitable billionaire or whatever. I truly do not believe that payment processors that wield like power over who lives and dies because money is your like amount of safety points that you have. No company should have that kind of censorship power. Yeah, and they'll abuse it. It sounds boring, but it's not like a boring change, right? It's the quiet normalization of financial censorship, and it's going to hurt LGBTQ games and devs. This I agree with. This is the next step, right? Banks like Visa and MasterCard are now backdoor moral authorities. They already pressured Patreon, OnlyFans, and others to remove not safe for work content. That is true. Now Steam is next, and guess who they'll target first? Queer, transgressive, or unusual games. Again, we're seeing them target like games with extreme fetishes first, but how long does it go until an extreme fetish is having a trans character? I don't think it's, a mistake that a lot of these games are, again, I don't think Futanari is trans people, but it is strange that a lot of them are incest and Futanari games. That's strange. Queer content gets flagged as explicit even when it's PG. That happens often. A trans dev making a personal story, too controversial. A surreal queer visual novel, sexualized. Financial deplatforming in action. And then lists a bunch of stuff like Celeste could potentially be on the chopping block because they have a trans main character. Boyfriend Dungeon because it's gay. Any visual novels by queer indie devs because they might have something that's just too controversial. Like, if banks raise a fuss, they'll nuke anything that could be controversial, and they'll say it's out of our hands. Corporate cowardice in action. This is how cultural erasure happens in the digital age, not with a banhammer, but with a denied payment processor, with a vague rule, with silence. Here's what pisses me off. The people who scream censorship the loudest are the same chuds who cheer when LGBTQ plus books are banned, drag shows are criminalized, or queer games are shadow banned. It's not about free speech, it's about control. They don't actually hate censorship. They hate losing control of narratives. If a game is gay, trans, or too weird, they're fine watching it disappear. But they'll cry foul if a game with anime boobs gets delisted. It's really frustrating. And this is something I have predicted that we'll see with like public indecency law. We're already seeing a push to change the definition of public indecency. And I truly believe that it is a move to make it so that if you are cross-dressing in public, quote unquote, that is, or you are wearing, queer clothes or alternative outfits, those are all things that can be marked potentially as publicly indecent, and real people could get hurt because they're just dressing the way they normally dress. Again, being trans is not being a crossdresser, it's not being a drag queen, it's not the same thing, it doesn't have any of the same things, but they don't care and they don't understand. And they don't want to care or understand. It's not their prerogative to understand, they just want to hurt people. Right? They are choosing to exert control over certain things so that they can tell us what is good and what is able to be made and what is not able to be made. Because again, people will make decisions based on these weird arbitrary rulings, and they'll say like, well, it's safer to just not make not safe for work content, or it's safer to not include an LGBT character. It's quiet pushing to cause people to make decisions in their art and in their process that change how queer people are represented and change how adult content is represented. And again, I don't think MasterCard and I don't think Visa should have the ability to tell us that shit. They should not be able to tell us who and what we can get off to. Genuinely, I don't think that as long as anyone is getting hurt and there is consent maintained and managed, I don't really give a shit what anyone does in their bedrooms, or Zerks it too. I don't care what's in your porn folder, and I think it's weird to care. I think it's really weird to care, right? Like, some of my best friends zerk it to stuff that I genuinely don't understand, and that's fine. Why the fuck would I give a shit about that? Why would I pass a moral judgment on that? That's weird, dude. Do I see a lawsuit happening about stuff like this? I think this is gonna quietly happen for a while, and then, like, we might see a pushback, right? We might end up seeing someone that gets sued that pushes back, but it won't be for a long time. It won't. At the very least, we'll have to wait for like enough people to get hit by it, provably, to do like a class action suit, right? Yeah, not in the next 4 years, for sure, or however long. Yeah, this is horseshit. Absolutely. If your bank ever got mad at you for commissioning pictures of your bunny Sona with giant honkers, I'd change banks. Yeah, but like that's the issue, is that you might not have the ability to change banks, right? Not everybody has that ability. Not everybody has that like chance. That could potentially, like, that one declined card could potentially fuck up your sales and like cause you to not be able to pay rent this month, right? And that matters. You deserve to be able to see pictures of your bunny girl with huge honkers. But you deserve to, right? You deserve to see pictures of your big anime titty bunny girl. You deserve that. And like, MasterCard should not be able to tell you you can't spend money on boobies. Even if you change banks, you'll probably still end up getting a card that pays through MasterCard or pays through Visa, just because these are huge payment processors. The development of the credit card was catastrophic for humanity in general. They can't tell you what to do, but they can make it so hard to give someone else money that it's just not even fucking worth it, right? And this is what I mean when I say that, like, problems are systemic, right? You start to like peel away at the layers of a problem, and you're like, oh my god, it's so much bigger and more complicated than that, and that's on purpose. They have created a system through a bunch of small rules that have created a whole thing that we just take for granted. But it's not that way. It doesn't need to be that way. That's what I mean when I say we need to try to shake up the system. All of the things that we pay homage to and we just take for granted are things that people have already decided, and we can just decide to not give them any credence. It's possible. It's hard. That's the thing that really frustrates me, is when somebody looks at a problem and is like, well, it's too big and hard and I can't figure it out, so we shouldn't change anything. It should just be everything should just be like that forever. Credit isn't real, neither is money. I'm too small to understand. I just want to work it to big titties, anime bitches. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Religion is a decent vector. Yeah, when protesters tried to get the Bible banned in school after a district banned gay books, like the Bible is obscene too. It is, absolutely. Credit isn't real until no financial institution approves you for anything. Yeah, that's the thing, right? Is they have so much power just because they have so much money. And it's on purpose, absolutely. It's these things that it's all so stupid and annoying and predatory, and it's on purpose, and it's done to put people like me and the people that I love in a box that says you are bad at being a person. And so we should look down at you. Yeah, it's designed even. You know, I really don't like the word systemic because it really makes you think that there's a problem with the system. Yeah, it's so hard. They make everything so hard and so obscure. It's all frustrating, and it's all, like, these problems are made to be too big for a single person to solve, which is why it's important to organize, right? Because the only reason they have the power to do this stuff is because they have so much money, but they aren't very many people. And if we all just decide to not take their money, then they don't have any more power than us. And I don't, like, I'm not saying that the solution is going to be quick or easy, or even that it'll work the way that we want it to, right? It's going to be slow, and it's going to be a process, but I think every step that we take towards making the world a better place for people like my friends and me, and just people in general, like, because it cannot be a good thing to allow MasterCard to tell you what you can jerk it to. It can't be. It's not possible. Obviously, it's not something that can be changed right away, and I don't really have, like, a serious call to action other than, like, make people aware of this, and if you can, I guess possibly, it's not really possible to avoid using payment processors, right? That's the problem, but we need to pressure these like, payment processors somehow. I don't know, like, who has the organizational power for that, but I don't necessarily have, like, call to action right now, but I will keep my ears peeled on this.
Panics externally to the horrors that humanity has created within my comprehension.
So true, bestie.